2008. I usually do that every year, and usually I can get the housing prices pretty close.
Well, so it's somebody that's listening to this and saying, because I know every single person I know, how many people in this country now see their mortgages, their homes, their biggest investment underwater. How many people, are even afraid? I'm with you. I don't really want to invest much in the stock market. I don't have a lot of faith in it. And I think to a certain extent it's gambling. And I'm just not a big risk taker in that sense.
You're right.
So then what do people do? Besides some gold, you can't put your entire portfolio in gold. I mean, what do you recommend people do with their money? Put it under a mattress? Do you buy treasuries? Do you buy municipals? What do you do?
Well, you don't want to buy municipals or treasuries because, buying more debt when the governments are finding it increasingly hard to service that debt is insane. I personally tend to recommend going fairly heavy on metals because regardless of whether the situation goes towards inflation or towards default, you've got something that is a fairly secure store of value. It's still going to be valuable whether it's a good investment or not. It'll still be worth something.
It'll still be worth something, but I mean, if gold during the Carter years was particularly high, I think it was close to $800-900 an ounce, if I remember correctly, and then it went down to $200 and something an ounce.
Right. The lesson in any market is don't buy it when it's at all-time highs. And so,
all right, so that's my point, though. That's my question, because I'm saying, all right, so people are listening to you. Maybe people fear, that the worst could happen, or this might be far worse and more dire than say some experts are telling us. Then what do you say that they ought to do at this particular moment?
Right. Well, the first thing that you need to do is you need to get out of debt one way or the other. So the first thing that you need to do is focus on getting out of your house, biting, if your house is underwater, bite the bullet and rent. If you're fortunate and you own your own house free and clear, that's where you might want to look at either investing in metals and that sort of thing, or alternatively, looking at investing in smaller companies where there's actual growth potential rather than the conventional, gambling in the stock market. You'd be much better off to invest your money in, a little franchise,
well, there's certain things that
Starbucks or something.
Well, when the economy is bad, people still need, toilet papers. People are still going to need Johnson and Johnson. I mean, there are certain blue chip companies that they might go up, they might go down, but they're still going to be in business because even in the worst of times, there are certain necessities that people need.
Right, but I would prefer to invest in companies that are directly providing those necessities. A company like Johnson & Johnson is so fundamentally divorced from its core business. The way that GM for years, the only place they actually made any money was not making the cars, but in the financing for the cars. I haven't looked closely at Johnson & Johnson, so I don't know. But I'm a little bit suspicious of big companies like that where a lot of their profit activity is actually driven by their financial paper rather than by their core activities. But there's tons of companies. I mean, everywhere you go, there's small and mid-sized companies, and there can be some really good investment opportunities there as the population is getting older, and you've got good, solid, profitable companies where the ownership is maybe looking to start retiring and taking time off. I'd be looking for opportunities like that rather than just handing it over to the folks in the stock market.
All right, so you're speaking a little bit more broadly than I would like. So, for example, if somebody is underwater, you're saying get out of your house, bite the bullet, and suck it up. Now, you don't see any hope that housing prices in the next 10 years or 15 years are going to rebound? None. Wow. And you don't. Well, hang on a second. So then, if somebody does, you're saying get out of your house now while you can because you'll do better than you would in 15 years from now. And that's pretty dire. I mean, it's a pretty dire prediction.
It is, but I frankly, I wrote The Return of the Great Depression in 2009, and the most remarkable thing to me about it is that I was overly optimistic with regards to a number of different factors. Looking at things.
So you can't. So you're saying
it's looking a bit worse than I thought.
All right. So if this is the case, then in other words, a lot of similarities between the American economy of now, the Japanese economy 20 years ago, which they still have not recovered from. You're saying you can't invest in municipals or treasuries because you don't think they're going to be worth much. I mean, well, I certainly wouldn't advise anybody at these interest rates to do anything long term, but certainly on a yearly basis you could do it and adjust as you see necessary, right?
Sure, you could certainly do that. But the important thing to understand is that, we're the beneficiaries of one of the longest bull markets in history. And so the mentality required in a depressionary market is asset protection, not chasing return.
All right, so give me the best, in the minute we have left, well, how do you protect whatever assets you have?
I'm an economist, not an investment guy. And so, like I said, I tend to like metals, and I tend to like actual companies that actually provide real services and make real profits for the independent owners.
All right. Well, we appreciate it. It's a little apocalyptic. I hope you're wrong, and I hope that the fiscal discipline that the Republicans are proposing helps a little bit. I do agree with one article that you wrote where Republicans, if they stand by their principles and stand firm, they win elections. And if they abandon them in the name of moderation or pragmatism or centrism, they're going to lose elections. And I think at least there's one party that is beginning to show signs that they get it, that this is a real significant, serious problem. Vox Day, a little bit apocalyptic, but maybe a sober reminder that people have got to prepare for a worst-case scenario, and his book is The Return of the Great Depression. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks, Shawn.
We'll continue.
Shawn Hannity.